Gladiator, the personification of risk and reward in Marvel Snap. But just how risky is he? How often is he just a big 3/8, and how often is he a liability? That's what I'll be answering today. I will go through each cost slot and look at how many cards are safe and how many are dangerous. Now, I'm aware that what is a good or bad Gladiator pull has a fair bit of nuance, so for the sake of this video, I will assume that Gladiator is being played on turn 3, and that any card that is fully destroyed and doesn't have any adverse destroy effects is a good pull. These numbers are current to March 29th, 2025, however, they will likely stay current for quite a while. With all that said, let's get into it. Gladiator is a 3-cost, 8-power card in Marvel Snap, with text reading, On reveal, add a card from your opponent's deck to their side of this location. If it has less power, destroy it. This means that Gladiator needs to pull a card with 7 power or less to successfully destroy it. If the power is 8 or greater, the card cannot be destroyed and stays on the board. Now, let's get into the more specific math. Here we are looking at the 1-cost slot. As you can see, there are 52 1-cost cards, 4 of which are bad pulls. Obviously, X-23 and Deadpool are bad pulls since the decks they're going to be played in want them to be destroyed. Nova is a little different since he can either be a massive hit to your Gladiator value or a free KO. It is entirely dependent on your opponent's curve and how many bodies they have on the board. Even with these 4 bad cards, 92.31% of all 1-drops are still safe. Now we move into the 2-cost slot. There are 75 2-drops in Marvel Snap, only 4 of which are bad pulls. Wolverine is obviously bad since he becomes a 2/5, which makes your Gladiator an effective 3/3, which definitely does not feel good. Bucky becomes a 2/7 and makes your Gladiator an effective 3/1, which is objectively terrible. Armor and Colossus aren't nearly as bad as the other two, but they are still pretty bad since they make your Gladiator an effective 3/5 with their respective 2/3 values. Not to mention the fact that the decks that they're played in would likely really appreciate it if you could pull those cards onto the board for free. Even with these 4 negative cards, 94.67% of all 2-cost cards are still safe to pull. Now we approach Gladiator's peak, the 3-cost slot. There are 76 3-cost cards in Marvel Snap, which just barely beats out the 2-cost slot in number. Out of these 76 cards, only 3 of them are bad pulls, and other than that, they are mostly good. These bad cards are Sabretooth, Gladiator, and Starbrand. Sabretooth, of course, wants to be destroyed, and if you destroy him, you have effectively started a destroy snowball that will bury you very quickly. And Gladiator and Starbrand are much simpler, since they match and outstat Gladiator respectively, meaning that they will not be destroyed. That makes 96.05% of all 3-cost cards safe to pull. Now we reach the point where Gladiator's performance really starts to take a dive, the 4-cost slot. There are 56 4-cost cards in Marvel Snap, 9 of which are bad, and most of these cards are just too big to die, and there really isn't much more to say about that. Ares is special because he's either a 4/6 or a 4/12, depending on whether his effect procs successfully. And Man-Thing is a 4/7, which means that he would be destroyed if he didn't have his ability, which reduces all 1, 2, and 3-cost cards' power at his location by 2. This makes Gladiator a 3/6 and allows Man-Thing to survive. That means that 83.93% of all 4-cost cards can be safely pulled. The 5-cost slot is really where you see Gladiator start to take a noticeable dive. Out of the 35 5-cost cards, 13 are bad. All these cards except for Nimrod simply outstat or match Gladiator's stats. Nimrod wants to be destroyed, unlike the others, and will become an effective 5/12 after dying by making clones at the other locations. This makes Gladiator an effective 3/4 in net stats. With all these bad cards, only 62.86% of 5-cost cards can be safely pulled. The 6-cost slot is where everything falls apart for Gladiator. There are currently 33 6-cost cards in Marvel Snap, 24 of which are objectively bad. All of these cards simply have 8 or more power and just sit on the board for free. Gore and Blob are highlighted since they are relatively conditional. If you and your opponent have really good curve and have played a lot of on-reveal cards, Gore can just barely survive the Gladiator. And Blob can either be terrible or just okay, depending entirely on your opponent's card draw throughout the game. It is entirely possible that they may have all of their big cards in hand, which would make Blob small, and you might be able to destroy him with the Gladiator. Otherwise, he will be giant and make Gladiator a net massive negative. Even with those conditional cards, only 27.27% of the 6-cost cards in Marvel Snap are safe to pull. Next we have the 7-cost cards, and there's only 2 of them, so this math is really pretty easy. Obviously, Airsham gets absolutely blasted by Gladiator, and then Scar has 12 power, so he easily survives, which means that 50% of 7-cost cards can be safely pulled. And then finally, we have 8-cost cards, though the plural is a little ambitious given that Death is the only one. And since she's an 8/12, she easily survives, meaning that 0% of 8-cost cards can be safely pulled. Here's a summary of all cards across all cost slots, and as you can see, out of the 330 cards in Marvel Snap today, only 59 of them are bad Gladiator pulls, which means that overall, 82.12% of cards are safe to pull with Gladiator on turn 3. This percentage changes depending on the deck you're playing against. Surtur, for example, is made up of mostly big-bodied cards, and so that would be a terrible pull for you, while something like Surfer generally has much smaller cards and it would be a lot safer to play into. Well, now you know. Gladiator is actually a pretty safe card to play overall. Out of the risk and reward, he is a lot more on the reward side, and he only gets better with every ongoing and activate card added to the game. Thanks for watching. See you next time.